This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. Our topic today, serious water management and market opportunities in the oil patch. Our guests are Marcus Gay, Director of Water and Information Insights at IHS, and Russ Capper, Founder and CEO of Cap Resources. All that right after this.
At BKD, we understand the constantly shifting nature of the energy industry. As a national CPA and advisory firm, we serve energy clients from the beginning to the end of the cycle. Our experienced energy advisors serve approximately 300 energy companies in exploration, midstream, downstream, oilfield services, and power production. Plus, we're the largest North American member of the Praxity Global Alliance, which means we can help you wherever you operate. Contact a BKD advisor or visit us online to learn more.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our topic today is water management and market opportunities in oil and gas. And my guests are Marcus Gay, Director of Water Information and Insights with IHS. Marcus, welcome to the Energy Makers Show.
Thank you, Russell. It's my pleasure to be here.
You bet. And Russ Capper, Founder and CEO of Cap Resources. Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show, Laura.
Great to be here again. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's start at the top. Why don't you, Marcus, give us an overview of IHS?
Certainly. IHS is a global firm. We have about 6,000 colleagues around the world, and we focus on providing critical information and insight to our customers. As I think about the work that we do, I kind of break it into three things. We have information databases collected around a number of different industry sectors, so software and databases. We have research advisory services and insight services, which are subscription. And then we also have private consulting as well. And we provide this support to a number of sectors: transportation, automotive, defense, energy, healthcare. And the work that I do is predominantly in the energy sector.
Okay. Laura, your turn. Give us an overview of Cap Resources.
Okay, Cap Resources has been around about 18 years, and our real specialty is working on emerging technologies. We're kind of the cusp at emerging business plays, emerging technology plays. So as it pertains to this topic, we started working in water, if you will, in 2007. Early on, so have just been through a great learning curve over the last 6 years or so, and have kind of developed that area, water management, as a core competency of our firm.
Okay, well, we've heard plenty of stories about water, but sort of give us the framework. Why is it such a challenge now?
Well, I think it starts off at the high level. If you take a step back from the energy sector and look at it from a global perspective, there's a growing deficit between supply and demand. In the energy sector, I've seen some numbers. I think it was from the European Environment Agency, Energy Agency, suggesting that right now we're using about 35 billion cubic meters for energy consumptive use of water for energy consumption, and it's going to grow over the next 20 years to 135 billion cubic meters. So there's this growing demand for water, which increases not only the industry's objective look at what our practices are, but also that of the outside personalities and community. Within the unconventional landscape, I think we're seeing a growth in unconventional resources, both shale gas and tight oil, and that growth is requiring us to have a lot of water available for the extraction of these resources, and the number of wells that we have generating water every day is growing exponentially.
Okay, are there issues beyond demand, though, in the water category?
What's interesting about water management in oil and gas is we're really kind of stretching to new frontiers. So if you think about classic water management, you've got a big plant, same stuff's coming in every day, same stuff's coming out every day, and it's fixed. You got plenty of space, you can let it settle a long time. And that is not the case in oil and gas. In oil and gas, there's a lot more naturally occurring components that come out of the soil when the water's being produced. And then there's also additives that are put in when you're fracturing a well. So on top of having flows that vary dramatically, you have these chemical compositions that are varying hugely. So if you think we're doing the same thing we've done for hundreds of years, but we're trying to do it in maybe 1/20th the space, make it mobile, and make it much more capable and flexible, it's really quite an engineering challenge just on the treatment side, and that doesn't include all the logistics and everything else to move it around.
The rapid development of these resources, and I heard somebody say this the other day, has made it look like the industry is more of a manufacturing process, quickly turning over the drilling, completion, and productions. And so supply chain interruptions to that are actually very expensive, and that's where water management really comes in.
But I'm surprised neither of you have mentioned environmental concerns yet.
I think it's critical. Actually, I was speaking not too long ago, and I mentioned that to me, water management, when I look at it, is a teeter-totter, a balance between the social license to operate of our industry and the economic performance of our wells. With, I personally think transportation is the fulcrum. And I think if you look at the environmental and cost implications of fluid transportation, particularly water transport, that's actually the key.
Yeah, I would amplify that in that obviously the value of water is very, very high and going to get higher, but it's not just about water. When you talk about the environmental issues, you consider that a single frac job, you hear these metrics of 700 to up to 1,000 truckloads of water, and all those trucks are going on the same road, so you're destroying roads, you've got emissions issues, so it really all kind of ties together in the larger environmental picture.
Okay, so what are the interesting trends that are happening right now to address this challenge?
I'm seeing a number of the service providing companies developing novel fluid chemistries that are enabling them to use different qualities of water. And I don't want to bore our audience with this, but essentially the water that comes out the ground, whether it's flowback or produced water, varying by play, has different water qualities. And being able to reuse this water quality and of high concentrations of salts and different metals is a critical advancement that the service providing industry is helping.
Absolutely, and one of the things that was fascinating to me, and again, every play is very unique. That's what makes a study quite challenging, actually, trying to get your hands around all that. So you have areas like the Fayetteville, for example, that a producing well might produce, say, 15,000 parts of what they call total dissolved solid, essentially kind of a salt, 15,000 out of 1 million. And then you go up north into the Pennsylvania Marcellus region, and you can see 250 and 300,000 parts per million. So that means for every 3 barrels of water you're producing, you have an entire barrel of salt. It's a huge issue. How do we use this resource?
All right, and we'll be back with more with Marcus Gay of IHS and Laura Capper with Cap Resources. This is the Energy Makers Show, seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com.
Welcome to this edition of The Power of People, where we explore how to bring out your most valuable asset. I'm Robin Knowles, President and CEO of TDS, the Workforce Performance Experts. Today we're here with Julie Alexander talking about employee motivation. Thanks for joining us, Julie.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
Julie, I'd like to talk about motivation. Is there a single essential factor that motivates employees, or is perhaps money the only motivator out there?
Well, all workers need to be paid, Robin. If employees feel that they're underpaid, then intangible rewards, less tangible rewards, will do little to motivate them. But if the money's enough, it's a good idea to use intangible rewards for motivation.
So what are some examples?
Well, intangible rewards can be things like status, recognition, and praise. Different people are motivated by different things. It's a good idea, though, to focus always on what motivates them, not what motivates you. For example, you may like to be rewarded by having additional responsibilities, or maybe by giving a speech in front of the entire organization. That would seem like punishment to some people. By the way, one of the great things about intangible rewards is that they generally save the company money.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, a couple of intangible rewards that work particularly well with the millennial generation and don't cost anything are job autonomy and praise. But it's a good idea to not focus just on intangible rewards. You can't substitute intangible for the tangible. People still need to feel that they're fairly paid. But for those who are financially okay, it's a good idea and to provide intangible rewards, and they'll often work harder when they feel that their efforts are acknowledged.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. This has been another edition of The Power of People. Join us again next time to learn more about how you can develop excellence in your workforce while getting the best possible ROI from your human capital.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now back to the Energy Makers show.
All right, continuing on with Marcus Gay of IHS and Russ Capper of Cap Resources. All right, now we've done a good job of talking about the problems, but we kick this off with referring to market opportunities. So there must be a lot of companies that right now are trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, that's the fun part of it. So we've seen this industry shift over the last 5 or 6 years, and our initial specialty was really looking at treatment technology companies and looking for kind of that next holy grail technology. So we spent a lot of time covering just the basics of treatment technologies, but that's really just a small piece of the puzzle. And there is a class of emerging companies, and they're doing quite well. They're selling at some very nice multiples, who are essentially picking up each aspect of water management. So they might buy some water sources. They have these kind of novel pipe-lay systems to transport it, store it, treat it, and then they'll take it all the way back to either reuse or disposal. So I think the really strong players are not one-trick ponies. They're picking up kind of a portfolio of services to pull it all together.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that in my background, I did a lot of work looking at water treatment technologies also, and there are a few that I consider to be novel, but more often than not in this space, the water technologies are actually already there, and it's actually about taking them from other industries and packaging them together to provide you with a complete process flow that works for your application. And I think it's the business model innovation that's really quite interesting, looking at over-the-fence agreements to provide water services, or in some cases, operators taking it in-house and becoming fully integrated, either integrated in the logistics supply chain or integrated, as you were saying, with regards to the actual water treatment and reuse.
Today, you've got maybe 15 or 20 different variables to work with. So what's it cost to bring it here? Is it cheaper to dispose it or actually recycle it? And people are just smarter now. So it's a complex process to build a really flexible, nimble water management program. But ultimately, it is going to your bottom line, and ultimately, it is also much more environmentally friendly.
One of the things that I've seen is that throughout the duration of these wells, as they age, you need to have a flexible approach that matures with the age. So early on during play development, you need mobility. Well, mobility comes at a high cost. Later in the play, as the more wells are coming online and a more stable water is produced, you can actually think about making investments into pipe infrastructure. And so there's definitely been that evolution as well.
So I was under the impression that at times it was actually been cheaper just to buy water, clean water, and not worry about cleaning the other water. Is that right?
Well, it can certainly be true. In the oil field, we tend to think in terms of barrels. 42 gallons is a barrel, so imagine like a bathtub of water is kind of a good proxy. So you might only pay, say a farmer has a freshwater supply, you might pay 10 or 12 cents for that barrel of water. Now you have to get it to the point where you want to use it. Obviously, you have to transport it. But the interesting pricing comes in when you're trying to get rid of that. So let's say you put it down a well, it flows back, and now you want to dispose of it. In some areas of the country, in particular Pennsylvania, the Marcellus, you put that in a truck, and that truck may have to drive as many as 8 hours before it can dispose of that water. There aren't any local injection wells. So that same barrel that cost you a dime or 20 cents to get could easily cost you $12 to get rid of. Huge inequity in those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would build on that and say that while the procurement cost of water is actually relatively low, more often than not we actually don't account for the cost of transportation when we think about this as almost like a lump sum. So you can a well might spend tens of thousands of dollars to procure the water, but it would then be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars for the transportation component.
All right, so you've both done a great job of describing the sensitivities and challenges. What do you think's really going to happen now? What is the solution?
We've talked about all the implications of trucking, road damage, emissions, just wear and tear type things. And if you look at what's happened in this industry, people figured out, well, instead of using all these trucks, we can do transfer via pipeline. Could be permanent, could be a little portable, could be one that you roll up. Mm-hmm. And if you look at how quickly, this is something Mark and I have studied together, how quickly people are shifting over to that pipe lay or water transfer. Mm-hmm. I guess the market's probably grown about 5x in as many years. Very, very quick adoption. So I think that's one of the more meaningful trends that we're seeing out there.
Okay, this perhaps somewhat fast evolution is because of the shale plays that are so active these days, right?
Yeah, because of the number of wells that have come online and the volumes of water that people are looking to, as we said before, utilize up front and then dispose of or reuse on the back end. It became a logistics challenge that needed to be rectified quickly and efficiently and cheaply.
I also think a component of is that, historically you think of oil wells and gas wells in West Texas, East Texas, they're out in the middle of nowhere. So you're really not dealing with community issues. And if you look at, in fact, the first shale play, the Barnett, is in the middle of Fort Worth, and all of a sudden you are literally in people's backyards. Yeah. So the operator has to coexist well with the community. There's no question about that. The community is increasingly aware of the value of water and their other water needs outside of obviously oil and gas use. So it's this compromise that's had to take place, and I think we're seeing operators much more aware of that and being good community players, and that to a large degree means recycling and reuse.
Yeah. There's also been an evolution in the regulatory landscape too, which adds to this, and it's I sometimes think that it's driven by the public social license, the social license to operate and the public's opinions, but we're certainly seeing it. There's been an evolution in regulatory code to help actually operators be able to recycle fluids. In a number of states, we've seen the ability, the regulatory code change to enable operators to put that fluid back on the well site in storage containers so that they can reuse it. So I think the regulatory landscape has a key component to driving the potential outcomes and the forecasts that we look at.
But what other things might impact the evolution?
It's a great question. So in the work that we've been doing, we've been looking at putting together these cost models that are driven by a number of things, not just the regulatory landscape, but the evolving technical landscape and also the operational decisions. In addition to which there's global macroeconomic components too. And I'll let Laura expand on this, but essentially in our work, we're putting together scenario forecasts that will enable us and our clients to be able to better understand the sensitivity of these things.
Mm-hmm. And many are not obvious. So we call them scenarios. It basically means, this is what might happen in the future, and if it does, how would that impact my business? One that I think is quite interesting. So regulatory clearly is a huge driver. The environmental sustainability, huge drivers. But some are not obvious. So you can imagine, you would think if in the oil and gas business prices go down and drilling goes down, so thus would the water management market. But in some areas, it's actually just the opposite. Mm-hmm. So as an example, in the Marcellus, they're reusing all this water for newly drilled wells, fracking new wells. And if they stop fracking those wells, they're going to have much more water that they have to either recycle or dispose of in some other means. So that's an example where the scenario is the oil and gas slows down, and yet we would expect to see significant escalation in water treatment providers.
Okay, say I'm an operator and I'm out in the field. How do I get smart on this subject?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that our collaborative work will really provide value on. And a key component to the operating industry is actually the siloing of cost centers. So, an operator has a budget identified for drilling, completions, and production. And only until recently are we starting to see those cost centers really being rolled up to a more play level objective kind of view. And that's enabling people to make decisions about putting more money into the capital budget rather than the operating budget, and effectively bring in water management policies and processes. The other component is just understanding what your neighbors are doing. So benchmarking operational methodologies, looking on a play-by-play basis to know what is the best practice happening in this play versus another play. I think those are key components. And being aware of what the best technologies are. I've spoken to operators who have told me that they are hounded with all of these technology vendors that come up to them, showing them literally a black box, saying that they can do this job, but just trust me, it's going to work. And I think that work like ours helps kind of maybe pull the shroud back a little bit on some of these technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of dovetailed into a lot of work that's been done on the investor side. So there's a real appetite for investing in this market, perhaps next gold rush kind of mentality around there. And really, it's tricky. It's complex. So just a very well-written business plan that says we can treat any kind of water anywhere is not atypical. And that's not a good investment strategy. You really have to understand the industry on a basin by basin basis. You do have to understand the classes of technologies out there. So, you know, that kind of primer, if you will, is really what you need as a foundation to either form your own water management strategy or if you're considering investing in the space.
All right, so I take it this is not the first time the two of you have gotten together and discussed this topic.
Absolutely not.
We intensely collaborate.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you cross paths?
Well, actually, that's a good question. So IHS has been working on the unconventional oil and gas water management space for a while now. And to be honest, through my primary research going out there talking to operators and service providers, I started to hear about work that Laura's company was doing. So I reached out to Laura to find out what she was working on. And it turned out that we were both working on very similar projects, and there was a natural fit for us to collaborate.
Okay, so might there be more teaming up together in the future?
Well, let's hope this is just the start of many good things to come.
I think so.
Yeah, we actually have some pretty long-term plans for keeping this steady, sustained, and updated. It's an evolving landscape, and actually it's a full-time job just keeping track of it. So we're kind of in this for the long haul here, watching the water management evolve.
All right, and that wraps up my discussion with Laura Capper and Marcus Gay. This is the Energy Maker Show, seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com.